You have an interesting backstory regarding learning that. Do you mind sharing
Which
that
one?
story with Apple and you having to go back to a special person
You
to
talk,
really teach about Steve?
talking about the phone call from Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I can't use the exact language on here because I'm not sure if this is monitored by the FCC or not. And Zucker.
You use similar language then.
Yeah. Let's see. Asterisk, question mark, hashtag. No. All right. So my job at Apple was to do market development for publishing and digital imaging, and sometimes that involved also video in the earlier days. So we had to come up with our own ideas how to do things, and I had come up with this idea when the new iMacs came out. At the time, they were the iMacs that were real pretty colors, and there were like 6 or 8 different colors. They were white, but then there was green, purple, and blue, and all these neat colors. And they're very neat looking computers. So I got involved with a venue in Los Angeles. It was a big music venue, and the Academy Awards were coming out. And I made a deal to wire all the computers up in the venue with internet, because at the time we didn't even have wireless internet. And we wired them all up. We had them there, and the idea was they were going to have an after awards party there. So all the press was going to be there. It was going to be a big event. A lot of stars were going to be there. And so I set it all up. We had probably 40 or 50 computers there for people to sit down and use and look at. And the Apple logo was on all of them. And I had put a big banner across the top of the bar area that said, computers from Apple Computer or something like that. Anyway, it had the Apple logo, and you knew it was us. And the night before the show, that was going to start at about 6 p.m. the next day. So about 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning that day, my phone rings, and I'm asleep, of course, and I answer it. And this wonderful woman, Katie Cotton, who was Steve Jobs' right hand at the time, called and said, "Mike, are you up?" And I said, "No, I'm asleep." "Katie, what can I do for you?" And she goes, "Hold on, Steve wants to talk to you." I'm like, okay. So by this time, I'm sitting up in bed with the phone in my hand, kind of going, okay, it's 4:30. Why does Steve want to talk to me? And Steve gets on the phone and he goes, "What part of the asterisk, exclamation part, hashtag brand have you forgotten?" And I had to sit for a minute and go, "What do you mean?" He said, "I just saw a picture of this event." He said, "Great event. What's wrong with it?" I said, "I don't know. I think it's pretty neat. There's all." I said, "No, what's wrong with it?" I don't know. He said, "The brand." He said, "Don't you remember? It's very simple. If you can't look at an Apple product and know who made it without seeing a logo or a sign or anything else, we've failed and they're not our customer. So you need to go down and cover up all the logos, take the signs down, and be done with it, and don't ever let it happen again." And he hung up, and I got out of bed, and I went down to the venue and tore it apart. So when I can tell it normally, it's a little bit more colorful.
But that's, no, I think that's really, really, really interesting, because as I'm sitting here, I'm wondering where we're going with this. And so why is that important for someone to know? Why is that important for someone to do with their own brand, so that if someone doesn't see their logo, they still know that it's them? Because I think that's powerful, but can you explain why the ethos of what Steve times 2 believed in that kind of case? Adding Steve Wozniak, I'm sure he had similar thoughts to that, right?
Well, it's interesting. Woz was the engineer and Steve was the sales marketing guy. But basically, Steve was smart enough to understand that if you keep things secret, if you don't let people know what you're doing ahead of time, it creates a gigantic interest and wow factor. And that wow factor to the media is worth money. The difference is you don't have to pay for it. They give it to you for free. So he used to think, and the numbers have changed, but we'll just kind of take an average. He used to think that not talking about a product before its launch was worth probably $25 million in free advertising. So that's one good reason for that part of it. The other part of doing good design, and I don't care if you're a graphic designer that develops a logo or if you're a manufacturer that's developing a product, you need to develop something just like he said, where people look at it and go, oh, Startwheel made that. You know, you look at Tim's logo for Startwheel. You can obviously, without it saying Startwheel anywhere near it, you know that's who it is. And that's the focus of a good brand. And Apple was always that way. I get a kick out of it now because it was so hard to get Apple products on television because they never paid for product placement. Like Jerry Seinfeld was the first person in the Seinfeld show. He had a little Macintosh SE up in his desk on the show, and it was his personal Mac. He didn't pay any placement, didn't ask anything from Apple. He just had it there. But that was worth a lot of money because it was a top-rated TV show, and it sat there.
Right. People don't realize that product placement is a thing where people are paying to get that premium spot. I mean, it happens on TV, it happens on the internet, it happens at your grocery store. The end unit is very expensive. You know, things are more expensive at eye level. You know, there's so many things that people can replicate as a process of what others are doing, and that's a great example. Like, why pay for product placement if you're good enough to do without it, right? If people are going to talk about it from a free perspective.
Yeah, and Apple took it as a mantra.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you should be able to recognize our product and know it's from us, and we don't have to pay for that. And you look around now, on every television, you will see a Macintosh laptop. And a lot of them have the logo covered up with some sticker or something like that. Doesn't matter. You still know it's an Apple product.
Right. Why do they cover that up?
Because they didn't pay for product placement. And the producers don't want to publicize something without them getting their nickel.
So how much money in free marketing did Tesla get yesterday with the attempted launch?
Elon's as brilliant as Steve. I think they had the same mother.
Well, it was interesting as you were saying that. I was thinking, you know, like, how many of those launches, like, they probably knew it wasn't really going to happen, right? The weather, you know, the weather beforehand, right? I mean, maybe I'm being wrong, but like, even going back to the Cybertruck, you know, I believe when the Cybertruck was released, I believe that they know that ball was going to break through that window or do what it did. And I think that by the time that they're in production, they will have figured that out. But they knew that they could get even more media hits by having it break than just if it wouldn't have worked. Because now people are like, oh, Tesla can't do this.
I'll go one step further. I'd be willing to bet you that was purposely done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, they got God knows how many millions of dollars that played on for weeks. In every
talking about it here months later.
It was
right, 6 months later.
It was a TV.
Just send me a free Cybertruck. That's fine. I'll grab my beard, be like whatever you guys want me to do. Like,
it's true.
At first, I hated it, and then I looked at it more, and I was like, I do kind of like that. I like the rolling up bed thing. That seems pretty slick.